Hello, it's me, Jeanette. How are you? I hope you've been well. Today's video is a coffee themed pocket letter, and it might be familiar to some of you because this was originally a live stream that I think was 2 hours long. But today I'm bringing you the re-edited and remastered version. So let's get started. To start off, you're going to need 9 cards, and each card needs to measure 2.5 inches by 3.5 inches. And again, you're going to need 9 of these. I'm starting off with black cardstock, but of course you can pick any color. I just am going for, I'm starting off with initially 9 black cards, but later on I'm going to switch it up and add some craft colored cardstock as well. So any cardstock will do. This will be the base of your POCKETMAIL layout. The size of these cards is also the same size as an ATC card, which ATC stands for Artist Trading Card. And again, that is 2.5 inches by 3.5 inches, which is also the same size as a playing card in a deck of cards. So if you want to use deck of cards in these layouts, those will absolutely work. So here you see I am making a mix and match layout of black cardstock and craft colored cardstock because I thought that would pair really well with the coffee theme that I was going for. Now let me talk about journaling cards for a second because here I have a journaling card that says do what makes you happy. Now journaling cards are bigger than ATC size cards. They're usually 3 by 4 inches or 4 by 6 inches, or sometimes they're like 5 by 8. Sometimes they can be really big, but you can use them if you trim them down, which is what I'm going to do with my Do What Makes You Happy journaling card here. I'm going to just trim around it and then use it in my layout. So I want to go for like a coffee theme, but also a floral theme. So like coffee and florals. Anytime I can incorporate florals into whatever I'm doing, whether it's POCKETMAIL or a journaling layout, I get really happy. And I also incorporate like coffee and tea into everything as well. It's just a theme that you can't go wrong with, at least not for me. Like hearts, florals, coffee, tea. I am a happy camper. Now, for the stamp set that I'm using, this is unfortunately a discontinued stamp set. It was part of a magazine. I don't remember the name or the issue, but the set is called Coffee Break, and it comes with this absolutely perfect stamp set of, it includes this beautiful coffee cup, and there's also other like little cute sentiments, and there's also a little die set that's included, a stencil, which I'll be using. Anyway, it's absolutely like the most perfect coffee sentiment set ever. And it was probably, I want to say it was most likely Simply Cards and Papercraft magazine, which is a magazine from the UK. And I got this set because I used to work in the UK at a magazine publisher, craft magazine publisher, and that's how I had access to these beautiful stamp sets that unfortunately are discontinued now and pretty much impossible to find. But I'm hoping that a lot of times they like recycle designs over the years, so keep an eye out for Simply Cards and Papercraft magazine. They'll probably bring back a version of this stamp set because it's just awesome. So here I am doing a stamped background on this particular card. I'm using white ink, the Umbrella Crafts white pigment ink, which is absolutely perfect, but again, it's discontinued. I really should get some products that are not discontinued so that you can find them. But yeah, stamping with white ink on craft cardstock is so classy to me, and you really can't go wrong with it. Okay, so I mentioned the stencil that comes in this set. So one side of it, it's kind of like a foliage, flourish kind of pattern, and the other side is a coffee bean pattern. So I'm taking some distress inks, and I don't know what color it is. It's like, obviously it's not called brown, but I'm just using that with my little foam dauber and stenciling some coffee beans on the top and the bottom of the card, like the top third or so, top fourth of the card and the bottom fourth of the card, to add a little bit of just more of that coffee theme goodness. Crafting is such an interesting process. There's a lot of decision making, and at least for me, you're like trying to figure out what is the best choice here. Do I put this card here? Do I put this little coffee cup on this side? What will look the best? What feels the best? And a lot of the times it's very like intuitive, like it doesn't really make sense why the bigger coffee cup makes me happier if I put it on the bottom left versus, putting it in the center. There's really no like rhyme or reason, but it just feels right sometimes. And I don't know. Crafting, honestly, sometimes when I'm crafting, it's so much it so much relates to my life and what I'm going through. And sometimes it feels like moving these layers of paper around and like layering, it almost feels like I'm trying to reconcile something in my mind. This is why I love collaging so much and doing like crazy collages, because I feel like when you're collaging, I feel like every little piece, every little layer, every sticker, every piece of ephemera, every embellishment is like a person, and I want everyone to get along and to make something beautiful. And when I'm collaging, and you're moving things around, these pieces around, it's almost like that. Like I wish everyone could just get along and be a pretty piece in my collage, and in the end come together to make something beautiful. And I know that sounds absolutely crazy. I'm sure it does. But I don't know. There's just something about moving pieces of paper around. And but that's collaging. And this particular layout is more like decision making and committing. It's about decision making and committing. So you're going to decide, okay, I'm going to put this sentiment card here, and I'm going to commit to it when I glue it down. So for this particular layout, it's more about decision making. And I know that makes no sense, and I do apologize, but these are things I think about when I craft. So let me know if you also think about crazy things too. It would make me feel so much better. So please let me know. Thank you. Okay, so let's get back to crafting and talking about my creative process, but hopefully not scaring anybody away with my wild thoughts. Okay, so usually when I'm creating pocket letters, pocket mail layouts, what I do is I set out my cards, my base cards, so my 9 base cards, and then I look through my stash and I start to make little piles of things that I think will go good in each section. Now, I'm not fully committing to these things yet, so what I'll do is I'll just put like a sentiment card, an embellishment, maybe a floral sticker, and I'll just make little piles on each card where I think these things will go good. And then later on, I'll try to figure out, okay, maybe this will work ultimately and I can glue it all down, layer it together, glue it all down. And maybe it won't, but at least they're there in those respective little piles. So, like, if there's an embellishment, like a wooden embellishment, I'll put it on one pile on top of one base card. And then I'll decide later if that will make the final cut. So I hope that makes sense. I like to make little piles. It's really easy to make little piles, especially when you have a theme going, or like you want to go with a particular like color palette. Then it's really easy to just make these piles and then later on decide what makes the final cut or not. Next, I wanted to add some interest to some of these just plain black base cards that I have going. So what I'm doing is I'm grabbing a Tim Holtz coffee stamp, and I'll try to find this one because I think this one you still might be able to find it on Amazon or something like that. But I'm going to take my white ink and stamp the black. And I'm going to stamp it in a way that makes it look like it's a pattern paper that I've previously purchased and not stamped. So instead of just stamping directly in the center of the card like you'll see me do, I'm going to start by stamping kind of off of the side. So this is just going to show you like, okay, it doesn't really look like pattern paper. If I just stamp it in the middle, it looks gorgeous, but I wanted to go for a pattern paper kind of effect. So you're going to see me kind of offset the stamp, not offset the stamp, but kind of stamp off of the side and create that patterned paper background. Another thing that works really well in pocket letters are frames. Now this particular frame that I used there, that light blue one that I put on the top middle card, so that is from a Sizzix collection and it is an Instax collection. So this came out in like 2016, 2015, so it's a little bit old, but I think it might still be on Amazon, like I've seen it, so I will link it below. But if you have Instax photos or you've seen anything that's like for Instax, like frames or anything like that, then that will fit these layouts, you know, because the card size is 2.5 inches by 3.5 inches. And so basically if it fits those dimensions, if you can stuff it into a trading card insert, then you are good to go. The next big thing I'm going to do to this layout is add some dimensional bows. And this is a bow die that I believe was also in one of the Instax collections from Sizzix, which was designed by the super talented Linda Canassi, which I believe she has a YouTube channel now. I'm going to try to find it. Linda was my former coworker at Sizzix, and she was just the sweetest, most talented, creative person, designer. So let me try and find that for you. But anyway, this is like a mini bow and it creates a 3D bow, so it's not a flat bow or anything. So I'm going to be cutting it from this planner insert, which is from Corey the Reset Girl, and I ended up not using a lot of the dividers, but I didn't want to like not use them or throw them away, which I wouldn't do. So what I'm doing is just using it as like cardstock so that I can create some cute little bows, and that's what I'm doing. Now, what's interesting about this layout is that I had a vague idea of what the color palette should be. So, I thought black would go well with craft, maybe some browns, and that would kind of play into the coffee theme. However, as the layout progresses, you'll notice that I'm using like teals and blues and some peach colors, like orangey kind of coral colors here and there. And the reason that happened is because of the bottom left card. I have an ephemera piece that is a floral bouquet, and if you look at the colors, it's like beige and blue and peach colors, and so that kind of inspired the rest of the layout. And it's just interesting how this happens. This wasn't intentional, this isn't how I envisioned it in my head at the beginning, but sometimes there's just something on your layout that inspires the whole thing without you really even knowing or even realizing that it's happening until maybe you are watching back a video or looking back at your layout. You're like, oh, I see now in the creative process that I was very inspired by this floral piece, and it set the tone for the whole layout. So this can happen, and it's kind of cool because it also kind of mimics life at times, where someone or something inspires you without even knowing and sets the tone for your day or for the rest of your life. I'm not sure. Maybe I'm overreaching. The next thing I'm working on is creating a stack of die cut teacups. Now, this little mini teacup die is just darling, and I wanted to use double-sided pattern cardstock. Is that what it's called? Cardstock that has a pattern on two sides. Why am I struggling? So I'm die cutting this teacup from different patterns, so then that way I can have the handle on opposite ends when I create my stack, and then I have the option of either having a certain like color pattern paper with the handle facing to the left or the handle facing to the right, because I think it just looks better when the handles are facing opposite directions. So that's what I'm doing. So here I'm just trying to figure out, okay, what is the best pattern combination that I want to stick to for this centerpiece card, the middle centerpiece card. The middle bottom piece card. What am I saying? Okay, so I have this mini little like coffee cup printable, and it has an animal print sleeve, which I really like, but I thought it was too much to have two like matching coffee cups on this particular card that I'm working on. So what I'm doing is just creating my own sleeve. So I cut a little rectangle, glued it right on top of the animal print sleeve, and then just trimming off the excess. And I think it adds to the layout. It just makes it more cohesive, because what's happening now is that you see that same blue, like that teal blue polka dotted pattern cardstock. You see that throughout the layout instead of just strictly at the bottom, So we have that polka dotted blue teacup at the bottom, then we have the coffee cup on the right with that same pattern paper, and now we're gonna have it on the upper left. So it kind of just balances everything out. And I also decided to cover the other coffee cup and add its own custom sleeve, just so that it matches like the pinks in the rest of the layout. So I hope that makes sense. It's just something really small that, you know, it might not have caught your attention, but it was definitely like intentional to make everything a little bit more cohesive, I guess is the best word. Something else I wanted to point out is that I added a piece of vellum to the background of the teacups because I felt like the black cardstock was too stark and too harsh, and those little teacups are so like dainty and delicate. And so I added a piece of vellum, which I trimmed just a touch smaller than the base card. So I want to say it was like 2¼ inches by 3¼ inches to get that kind of frame effect. Okay, so that's as far as I got in my layout, and I'm pretty much done other than I have to add just like 1 sentiment on that upper right card. And then I would put this whole thing into a trading card insert. But I wanted to say thank you so much for watching and for listening to all my crazy talk. I really appreciate it, and I hope you have a great day.